I woke up because of a sound I couldn't place at first. Not the usual alarm, not the creak of the hallway floorboards. It was laughter. Shrill, mean-spirited laughter coming from downstairs, sharp like broken glass under bare feet. My head pulsed, my tongue felt like it had been scrubbed with sandpaper, and my limbs were heavy like I'd slept in concrete. The scent of alcohol clung to my skin, but not in a normal way, not like a night out with the guys. This was something different. Something intentional. I tried to sit up but had to brace myself against the headboard. Everything tilted. Through the haze, I remembered drinks being shoved into my hand, voices around me, her voice, louder than the rest. Too cheerful. I remembered ice clinking and a metallic taste after the second drink. That taste shouldn't have been there. I blinked slowly, trying to will the room into focus. My bedroom, darkened by thick curtains, smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't hers. That hit me like a splash of cold water. That detail? Subtle but wrong. That's when I heard the voice I wasn't expecting, my son's. Tyler. Just outside the door, whispering like the house itself might overhear. He pushed the door open slowly, his small face tight with worry, his jaw clenched in a way no kids should be. His eyes didn't dart like kids' eyes do. They locked on mine. Dad, he whispered, stepping closer, his hand gripping something in his hoodie pocket. I planted a hidden camera in the guest room. You need to see it. I didn't ask why. I didn't even ask how. I just looked at him, and for a second, time folded in on itself. Because somewhere, deep in my chest, I already knew what it would show. This wasn't some paranoia-fueled fantasy. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a carefully set trap, and not by me. He led me downstairs, tiptoeing around the patches of sunlight where the laughter still echoed. The living room was wrecked, empty wine bottles, one shoe under the coffee table, and someone's jacket on the floor. My wife's friends were still here. I could hear one of them joking about how I passed out faster than her Tinder date last week. Another voice said he didn't even make it past drink number 3. Lightweight. They didn't care that I could hear them. Or maybe they thought I couldn't. Tyler took me to his room, closed the door, locked it. Then he pulled his laptop from under his bed and opened a folder called Roomcam. It was the kind of name a kid might give a YouTube prank video. Not this. He didn't speak as he played the footage. And what I saw didn't just punch me in the gut. It rewired my entire nervous system. There she was, my wife, sitting on the bed in the guest room with 2 of her friends, drinks in hand, giddy and flushed. And then the door opened again. A man walked in. Not a stranger to her, though. She got up, went straight to him like it was choreographed, like it had happened before. Her hands went around his neck. His on her waist. One of the friends actually clapped. That moment is burned into my brain, not just her betrayal, but the applause. There was no shame. No hesitation. Just bold, brash confidence. She was the director of her own disgusting show, and I'd been cast as the fool off stage. Tyler paused the footage before it went further. He looked up at me, eyes shining but jaw clenched. I didn't know what to do, he said. I heard them laughing about you. I heard her on the phone last week saying you're just, wait, that you wouldn't even notice. I had to know. My hands didn't tremble. I didn't shout. There was just a cold silence between us. A silence that replaced the blood in my veins with static. I stood up, walked out of the room. The hallway stretched longer than usual. The air felt thinner. I stepped into the living room like nothing had happened. Like I was still the drunk idiot on the couch from the night before. Her friends paused mid-laugh. She turned around slowly, wine glass in hand, eyes narrowing for a half-second before she pasted on a smile. Well, look who survived his little blackout, she said. But I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because I had something better than words now. And I was going to use it. Not in the way she'd expect. I walked into the kitchen without looking at any of them. I poured myself a glass of water even though my stomach still turned from whatever she'd slipped into my drink. I could feel their eyes on my back. The silence was growing, stretching, snapping at the edges. I took a long sip, wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, and then finally turned around. She leaned against the counter, her arms folded, the glass still hanging from her fingers like a prop. There was a smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. Like this was funny. Like I was still part of the joke. You gonna be mad at me for having a little fun? She asked, one eyebrow arched. You passed out before midnight. What was I supposed to knit? One of her friends let out a nervous laugh, but it died just as quick when I didn't react. I stepped closer, slowly, calmly. Measured. Her face shifted just a little. Just enough. She knew something wasn't right. You remember the guest room? I asked her. The one you said you were cleaning up after Julie threw up? She blinked. Just once. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes twitched. Yeah, what about it? That's funny, I said, and my voice came out cold. Steady. Because it looked perfectly clean on camera. She froze. You know that moment when a dog hears a sound it doesn't recognize and its ears go up, head tilted, eyes sharp? That was her, right then. What are you talking about? She asked. Tyler's footsteps were light on the stairs. He stood behind me now, silent, watching her. She didn't look at him. Wouldn't. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The clip started playing, just the opening seconds. Her in the room. The other man entering. The kiss. That disgusting clapping. Her smirk dropped like a stone. The wine glass in her hand tilted, splashed red onto the white tile. She caught it, but it was too late. The silence in the room now wasn't empty, it was charged, humming, screaming behind our ears. You little, she started, glaring at Tyler. Don't, I said, and my voice cracked like ice splitting in a frozen lake. Don't you even look at him. Julie stood up, mumbling something about needing air. The other one followed. They left without finishing their drinks. Now it was just the three of us. Her eyes flicked between me and Tyler. Then she scoffed. Actually scoffed. What, you're spying on me now? You plant cameras in our house like some kind of freak. No, I said. He did. Because he didn't trust you. Because you taught him not to. She laughed again, but this time it wasn't confident. It was forced. Bitter. You two are unbelievable. You think this is betrayal? Please. You've been emotionally checked out for years. All you do is go to work, come home, and act like everything's fine. And your solution to that was what? I asked. Invite someone else into our house? Into the room next to where your son sleeps? And then laugh about it with your friends while I'm unconscious. You're being dramatic, she said. You drugged me. That stopped her. She opened her mouth to deny it. Closed it. Opened it again. I didn't drug you, she said finally. I just gave you something to help you sleep. You've been so stressed. It was supposed to help. Help, I repeated. Tyler was trembling. I could feel it even from behind me. She stepped forward, switching tactics now, voice softening, fake concern painted on her face like cheap makeup. Look, babe, maybe we messed up, okay? Maybe I got carried away. But you're acting like this is some kind of crime. It was just a mistake. A stupid, one-time Stop, I said. Just stop. I turned to Tyler. Go to your room, kiddo. He didn't want to. I could see it. But he nodded and went upstairs. I looked back at her. And for the first time in a long time, I saw her without all the filters. No charm. No manipulation. Just a tired, bitter woman whose game had finally been caught on tape. I'm going to the lawyer tomorrow, I said. You should probably start packing. She didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just stared at me like I'd just taken away the last toy she thought she could play with. You think you're going to win? She whispered. You think people are going to believe you? I don't need them to, I said. I just need the truth. I walked out of that room, leaving her in that silence she always tried to fill with noise. For once, she had nothing left to say. That night, sleep never came. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the walls breathe. Every little creak felt loaded. The digital clock beside me ticked each second like a countdown, but I didn't know what to. She stayed downstairs. I didn't care where she slept, floor, couch, the backyard, for all I cared. I heard her pacing. Talking to herself. Once she slammed a cabinet. Once she called someone. I didn't catch who, just heard, he knows, followed by muffled panic. No apology. No remorse. Just strategy. At around 2:40 a.m. she tried to come into the bedroom. I didn't speak. I just locked the door. Let the silence tell her what I felt. In the morning I called off work. I told them it was personal. They didn't ask questions. People can sense when not to. Tyler didn't say much either. Just sat at the table, poking his cereal. I wanted to tell him something comforting, something to undo what he'd seen, but I wasn't going to lie to him. Lies were what got us here. She'll try to twist it, I said finally. Make it seem like what you did was wrong. I don't care, he muttered. You will, I told him. Eventually. But you'll also know you were right. He nodded. I didn't know what else to say. Then she came in. Brazen as ever. Hair perfect. Full face of makeup. Like nothing had happened. She was dressed like she was headed to brunch with someone important. Purse over her shoulder. Phone in hand. Already texting. I need to grab a few things, she said, not even looking at me. Take whatever you want. I changed the bank passwords. That made her pause. You really think you're going to win this game of yours? She asked. There's no game, I said. Just evidence. And memories. She scoffed. You want to go to war over a mistake? You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a choice. Over and over again. You just never thought anyone would record it. She clenched her jaw. Fine, she said. Fine. You want to humiliate me? Ruin my life? Go ahead. I'll tell people you're unstable. That you've been spying on me, recording me without consent. You think anyone's going to side with a control freak who lets his kids set up cameras? That's the story you want to tell? I asked. Go ahead. But the moment you mention my name in public, I will make every frame of that footage very public. She froze. No one will hire you after that, I added. Not even your little wellness podcast you've been pretending not to work on. Her face cracked, just a bit. Enough. How long have you known? She asked, venom lacing every word. I didn't, I said. Not really. I knew something was wrong, but I wanted to believe it was just life getting messy. You handled the rest. You exposed yourself. You couldn't help it. She didn't respond. She turned and walked out, slamming the door like she had the last word. Tyler and I looked at each other. The silence was heavier now, not with tension, but with some twisted form of relief. The kind that comes from finally knowing the monster under the bed is real and walking away anyway. Later that day, I went to the lawyer. Laid it all out clean. Video files. Witness. Timeline. You're not the first guy to walk in with a broken marriage, he said. But you're the first who's kid played private investigator. We both smiled at that. For a second, there was light in the darkness. But things weren't done. Not even close. Because she wasn't going to vanish quietly. 3 days passed. She was quiet for exactly 2 of them. She moved in with one of her friends, no idea which one. Didn't matter. They were all part of the same rotten core. Women who cheered on betrayal like it was a girls' night sport, laughing at a man drugged unconscious in his own home. Now that her little secret had teeth and a timestamp, she was smart enough to lie low. But day 3? She unleashed hell. It started with a phone call from the school. Tyler was pulled out of class because a concerned parent had submitted an anonymous complaint that he was being used in a domestic dispute. A phrase too clean, too legal. Straight from her mouth or her new lawyers. They wanted to evaluate the environment. Check his emotional state. They asked if there were cameras in the house. I told them yes. In my home, facing my property for security. I didn't mention the bedroom. They didn't ask. Tyler was quiet on the ride home. He looked out the window and finally said, "She's trying to take me, isn't she?" I gripped the wheel tighter than I should have. "She's trying to scare us," I said. "That's different." She wasn't done. That evening, the HOA president knocked on my door. Apparently someone filed a complaint that I had surveillance equipment pointed at neighbor properties and they were concerned about privacy. Again, no names. But I could hear her voice behind every lie. She was testing the perimeter, pressing every button. She couldn't undo the footage, so she drowned me in noise. Make me look like the unstable one. Play the concerned mother. Classic misdirection. What she didn't know. I was ready. I sat down and wrote out a full account. Every event, every timestamp, copies of the footage. My lawyer helped me file for a temporary protective order, not from violence, but from interference. And we made it clear in writing. She was not to speak to Tyler unless it was court-approved or in writing, logged and monitored. I thought maybe that would finally slow her down. But the next morning, she showed up at the door. Not alone. With her was a man I hadn't seen before, maybe early 40s, shaved head, expensive sunglasses, that casual arrogance of someone who thought the world owed him an easy life. He was standing too close to her. His hand rested just slightly on her back. Not affectionate, possessive. She rang the bell like she owned the damn house. I opened it. Said nothing. Just stared. "We're here to talk like adults," she said, bright and calm, as if she hadn't tried to smear me through every channel she could find in the past 72 hours. The man beside her looked me up and down like I was a used tire he was thinking of throwing out. "Who's this?" I asked. "Mark," she said. "A friend." He smiled. "A mediator. Just here to keep things cool. Get off my porch." Her smile broke. She didn't like being dismissed. Not in front of her new pet. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "This is still my house too." "No, it's a legal battleground now," I said. "And until a judge says otherwise, you need to go through my lawyer." "We don't need lawyers," she said. "We can work this out between adults." "You tried that," I said. "Remember? You worked it out in the guest room." Mark stepped forward. "Look, buddy, I get that you're angry." "No," I said, voice sharp. "You don't. And don't call me buddy." He paused. Then his hands came up, mock surrender. "This doesn't have to get nasty," he said. "It already did," I said. "Now get off my porch." They didn't move. Not right away. So I reached into my pocket, took out my phone, and pressed record. "Smile," I said. "Now I'm the one collecting footage." That did it. She turned, fuming. He followed, muttering something under his breath. I didn't bother listening. As they walked away, she turned back and said something that chilled the air between us. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." And for once, I believed her. But she had no idea what I was capable of either. By the time I shut the door, I already knew what was coming. She wasn't bluffing. Her visits weren't just tantrums, they were scouting missions. She was testing how far I'd go, how much ground I'd defend, how fast I'd escalate. That meant she had something planned. Something bigger. She was reckless, but never without purpose. Even her chaos had a map. That night, I made copies of everything. Not digital paper. USB drives. 2 full sets of documentation sealed in envelopes, one in my office, one dropped off with a friend I trusted more than most people trust family. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was prepared. And it's a good thing I was. Because at 10:13 the next morning, I got a call from Child Protective Services. They were on their way to the house. An anonymous report claimed I had anger issues, that I was coaching my child to lie, and that I had installed hidden recording equipment to manipulate and control members of the household. The woman on the phone spoke in rehearsed empathy, the kind that almost sounded sincere. I understand this must be upsetting, she said. No, I wanted to tell her. What's upsetting is that someone can betray you, drug you, violate the sanctity of your home, and still find ways to spin the story like you're the villain. Tyler was at school. That gave me time. I printed timestamps. Still shots. Phone records. I laid it all out like a museum exhibit of betrayal. When the agent arrived, I met her calmly, respectfully. I offered water. Let her look around. Told my story without embellishment. Every word clean, sharp, specific. She nodded more than she spoke. She took notes. Then I showed her the footage. Not the whole thing. Just enough. The entrance. The kiss. The laughter. The mockery of me as I lay unconscious. Her line, he won't remember a thing. The agent sat very still. And when she stood up, she didn't ask about my anger issues. She didn't mention surveillance laws. She just said, I've seen enough. She left me her card and promised to follow up. I watched her drive away, heart still beating like a war drum. An hour later, the first message came through. Not from her. From her lawyer. Cease all surveillance. Immediate takedown of private footage. You are in violation of her personal rights and subject to litigation. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Then came the second message from her. It was a voice message. I shouldn't have opened it. But I did. Her voice was low, controlled, soaked in the kind of calm that always comes before a knife. You think you've won something? All you've done is corner me. And when you corner someone, they stop playing by the rules. Remember that. I sat there for a long moment after it ended. Then I copied the recording, filed it. Because I wasn't dealing with a wounded partner. I wasn't dealing with a woman who'd made a mistake and didn't know how to fix it. I was dealing with someone who liked the chaos. Who lived in it. Breathed it. Needed it. And I was about to show her what happens when the quiet one decides to stop absorbing damage and starts dealing it back. Tyler came home that afternoon with a paper in his hand and a strange look on his face. Not scared. Not sad. Just calculating. Like he was connecting dots faster than a kid should ever have to. He handed me the paper and invite to a school mediation meeting. Apparently, his mother had requested a joint session with the school counselor to clarify the domestic situation and discuss long-term custody planning. She was trying to backdoor me through him. I stared at the words for a long time, then placed the paper down carefully on the table. My hands were steady, but something inside me was breaking in a way I couldn't feel yet. Like ice splitting silently under your feet before the fall. You don't have to go, Tyler said. I looked at him and I saw it, the weight in his eyes. He wasn't asking if I'd go. He was asking if he still had someone who would stand between him and her. I'm going, I told him. But you're not speaking. Not one word. Not until there's a court order. He nodded. That was the thing about Tyler. He didn't need loud promises. He just needed the truth and someone to say it without shaking. The next morning, I arrived 10 minutes early at the school. I was dressed in clean, neutral colors. Professional. Calm. I brought documents, emails, a timeline, legal correspondence, and a sealed letter from my attorney. Then she walked in. Hair down, fake tears already brimming. Dressed like a sitcom widow. She greeted the counselor like they were old friends. Said she was so sorry it had come to this. Claimed she just wanted what was best for Tyler. She didn't look at me. Not once. The counselor, a woman in her mid-50s with soft eyes and a too-trusting smile, opened with a question, is there any chance for reconciliation? That's when she turned to me finally and said something that took the breath right out of the room. I'd be open to trying again. For Tyler's sake. If he's willing to make some changes. I blinked. Changes? I said. She nodded. I think we both know your behavior has been tense. Controlling. You've always had this need to monitor things. It's not healthy. The counselor started nodding. That's when I reached into my folder and pulled out the printed transcript of her voice message from the night before. The one where she'd said, you think you've won something? All you've done is corner me. And when you corner someone, they stop playing by the rules. I handed it over. Then I added a screenshot of the footage timestamp. Her laughing while I was unconscious. The other man walking in. Her clapping friend. The counselor's face changed. I also have an active report on file with CPS, I said. They've seen this footage. The legal process has started. I'm only here out of courtesy to the school. Nothing more. For the first time, my wife's eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before, not rage, not arrogance. Panic. She stood up too fast. This isn't a courtroom. You can't. No, I said. But that's where we're going next. I stood too. This meeting is over. I walked out without waiting for permission. Tyler was waiting in the car. When I got in, he looked at me and said, "How'd it go?" "She blinked," I said. He smiled for the first time in a week. But I knew better. Because blinking wasn't surrender. It was calculating. And she was about to get dangerous. It started with my tires. All 4 of them slashed clean open in the middle of the night. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no cameras on the street. She knew exactly where the blind spots were, didn't she? Or maybe she didn't do it herself. Maybe she had someone else, someone who owed her something, someone she'd wrapped around her finger. The tow truck guy looked at me like I owed him an explanation. I gave him none. Just nodded, tipped, and got back inside while he hauled the carcass of my car away like it was some animal she'd left bleeding on my driveway. 2 hours later, I got a notification my work email had been compromised. Someone had sent internal documents to one of my department heads. Unflattering ones. Old HR complaints taken out of context. Anonymous concerns about my temperament at home. All of it tied to my name, just vague enough to spark doubt, just real enough to make people hesitate. She was trying to turn the world before the court could speak. I should have been livid. I should have been shouting into every phone I owned. But I wasn't. I was cold. Focused. I went to the police that day. Filed a report on the tires. Submitted a copy of the suspicious email activity to my attorney. Logged every incident. Every smear. Every tiny little fire she tried to start in the corners of my life. When people like her feel the narrative slipping, they go nuclear. And she was pressing the button with manic precision. But she made a mistake. She underestimated how many people were tired of her games. That afternoon, I got a call from her old friend, one who hadn't been invited to the girls' night. A woman named Vanessa. We'd barely spoken in years, but she was one of the few who'd stayed neutral through our slow, private collapse. She didn't call to gossip. She called with purpose. "She's unraveling," Vanessa said. "She's going around saying you're going to take Tyler away and that you've been tracking her movements for years. She's scared of you, but it's performative. She wants people to see her being scared." I said nothing. Just listened. "But here's the thing," Vanessa added, "she slipped up. She told someone that she'd put something in your drink that night, just to keep you down. She laughed about it. I don't think she remembers saying it. But I do. And I'll say it in court if you need me to. There it was. Confirmation. She confessed to someone. Casual. Sloppy. Not expecting it to matter. That's how the truth comes out with people like her, not in a fit of honesty, but in the smug belief that they'll never have to answer for it." I got off the phone and sat there for a long time. The kitchen was silent. The fridge hummed. Outside, a bird landed on the railing and chirped like nothing in the world was broken. Then I opened my laptop and began drafting my own declaration for the custody hearing. It wouldn't be vengeful. It would be surgical. Truth doesn't need to scream to cut. It just needs to be clean and sharp and in the right hands. But I knew something else too. She wasn't going to go down without a final act. And the final act came faster than I expected. 3 days before the custody hearing, she staged a scene. It was evening, just after sunset. Tyler was in the living room doing homework, headphones on, focused like he always was when the world got too loud. I was in the kitchen finishing a call with my attorney when the doorbell rang. Not a casual ring, a hard, rapid-fire burst like someone was in trouble or wanted you to believe they were. I opened the door and she was standing there, mascara smeared, eyes wide, lip trembling, like a tragic character she'd rehearsed to death in a mirror somewhere. She looked like she hadn't slept, but I knew that was makeup too. The trick was to look broken. A woman pushed too far. A mother in distress. It was the role of her life and she was playing it for an audience. "There's something wrong with me," she whispered. I said nothing. Just stared. "I haven't eaten in 2 days," she went on. "I'm having panic attacks. I'm not okay." Still, I said nothing. She took a shaky breath and clutched the edges of her coat tighter around her. "I'm not here to fight. I just need help. I don't want to lose my son." Her eyes darted past me. She was looking for him. Listening for his footsteps. Waiting for him to appear, for the witness she needed. And I finally understood. This wasn't for me. This wasn't even real. It was a performance, perfectly timed to frame me if I snapped. To bait me into pushing back. To scream, to shove, to fail in front of my own child. One final shot at twisting the narrative. But she didn't know what Tyler had seen. What he already understood. The footage wasn't just evidence to him, it was revelation. It had shown him what masks looked like when they slipped. And hers had slipped too far to pull back on now. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me, leaving Tyler safely inside. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want to fix this," she said. Her voice cracked like glass under pressure. "I made mistakes, but you're trying to destroy me." I was sick, confused. That night, I didn't know what I was doing. "You knew enough to clap," I said. Her jaw tensed. That guy, he meant nothing. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking clearly. You planned it. You waited for me to pass out. You invited them in. You clapped like you were proud of it. She took a step back like I'd slapped her. But there were no tears now. Just a hardening behind the eyes. A shift. The pity act was fading. The real her was coming up through the cracks. I'm going to tell them you're trying to isolate Tyler from me, she hissed. That you turned him against me. That you made him spy on his own mother. Good, I said calm. Because then they'll ask why he felt he had to. Her breath caught. For 1 second, just one, I saw it, the tiny flicker of doubt. Like maybe, just maybe, she was starting to realize how far she'd fallen and that there was no rope left. She turned and walked off without another word. But I knew better than to take silence for surrender. That night, I got an email from her lawyer. Due to the mother's mental and emotional condition, she is requesting a delay of the custody hearing for medical evaluation and psychological treatment. Stalling. That was her final move. Not rage. Not fire. Delay. The coward's retreat. But I wasn't afraid of time. Time was doing my work for me now. The delay was granted. 2 weeks. 14 days for her to regroup, reframe, reinvent herself as the tragic heroine. The healing mother, broken by circumstance, not by choice. Her lawyer sent over documentation, some clinic she checked into on the edge of town, vague on details, heavy on buzzwords, exhaustion, emotional trauma, mental health stabilization. It read like a redemption arc drafted by PR interns and stitched together with pity. I didn't respond. I let the silence speak for itself. But Tyler saw through it faster than I expected. She's pretending to be crazy now, he asked, deadpan, flipping a pencil between his fingers like he was watching someone else's game fall apart. She's pretending to be wounded, I corrected. Crazy gets sympathy. Wounded gets custody. At least that's what her lawyer thinks. He nodded like a boy twice his age. Like someone who understood that love wasn't always permanent and betrayal always was. The night before the new court date, something unexpected happened. Vanessa called again. But this time she didn't sound cautious. She sounded furious. She's been talking to your neighbors, she said. Telling them you're emotionally abusive. That you've been stalking her. That you planted cameras all over the house, even in her bathroom. That last part made me laugh. It was so absurd, so desperate, so cartoonishly over the top that I almost didn't believe she'd said it. But Vanessa didn't lie. And she wasn't alone. By morning, I had 3 voicemails from people on the block. Half of them awkwardly checking in, the other half too polite to say what they'd heard. One even said I didn't want to believe it, but she seemed so scared. Of course she did. Fear is her favorite mask. Always has been. I spent that day doing something I hadn't done in months, reaching out. I called the neighbors. One by one. Not to argue. Not to beg. Just the truth. The ones who mattered listened. The ones who didn't? Let them gossip. Because the truth wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to Tyler. To Vanessa. To the counselor who saw through her. To the CPS agent who watched her brag on tape while I lay unconscious. To every shred of proof I'd kept stacked, labeled, timed, and ready. When I showed up in court the next day, I wasn't nervous. She was. She walked in flanked by her lawyer and a nurse from the clinic. Dressed like a victim, soft tones, hair pulled back, no jewelry. Like she was in mourning. For what? Her dignity? Her lawyer started strong, tugging at the judge's sympathy, describing a mother worn thin by years of emotional imbalance in the home. Claimed I was rigid, withholding, obsessed with control. Claimed I'd used Tyler as a tool, that I'd weaponized surveillance. Then my lawyer stood up. No theatrics. Just evidence. Footage. Voice memos. Witness statements. Timeline. School records. CPS report. Everything lined up. The judge asked to pause for 10 minutes. She looked at me once during that recess. Not hatefully. Not even angrily. Just hollow. Like she'd finally run out of versions of herself to hide behind. When we returned, the judge spoke calmly. Based on the evidence provided and the testimony reviewed, I am granting primary custody to the father. Supervised visitation rights will be available upon psychiatric evaluation and 6 months of documented behavioral progress by the mother. I didn't smile. Neither did Tyler. Because this wasn't victory. It was survival, the court let out quietly. No shouting. No drama. Just the faint squeak of chairs, the soft scrape of shoes, the quiet hush of people avoiding eye contact. She didn't speak to me. Didn't speak to anyone. She walked out like a ghost with paperwork in her hands, followed by her lawyer, who was already checking his phone. Tyler stood beside me in the hallway, staring down at the tiled floor like he was waiting for something. A bang. A scream. One last explosion from the woman who used to sing him lullabies. But it never came. Just silence. I signed the final documents. Heard the judge's words replay again and again in my head: primary custody to the father. Supervised visitation rights. I didn't celebrate. There's no joy in a win like that. Only relief. And a strange, heavy emptiness where love used to live. That night, we didn't talk much. Tyler asked if he still had to see her. Yes, I said. But you don't have to pretend. He nodded. Didn't say anything else. Just went upstairs and shut his door. I sat at the kitchen table until the clock blinked 2 a.m. Just sitting. Not thinking. Not planning. Just still. A week passed. She texted. Short, forced check-ins. Tell him I love him. Can I send a gift? Nothing personal. No apologies. Just the bare minimum needed to keep the narrative of trying mother alive. I didn't respond. Tyler didn't ask. Vanessa visited once. She brought over a pie she hadn't baked and a bottle of wine she knew I wouldn't open. We sat on the porch looking out at the street like we were guarding the neighborhood from another war. She'll resurface, Vanessa said. I know. You scared? No. Not anymore. Because I wasn't that man on the couch anymore. The one too polite to question. Too tired to fight. Too trusting to notice the camera in his son's room was the only line of defense they had left. Now I trusted my instincts. Now I kept receipts. Now I watched everyone. The footage, the CPS report, the court transcripts, they were locked away. Not as weapons. As insurance. Because the one thing this whole nightmare had taught me is that people who lie like that don't stop. They just get better at it. A month passed. Then, too. One supervised visit came and went. She brought coloring books. Sat stiffly in a corner like she was doing penance. Tyler said she asked him if I was mean to him. He shrugged and said no. Just quiet. She didn't smile after that. He hasn't asked to see her again since. The house is quieter now. Not sad quiet. Peaceful quiet. He started sleeping with his door open again. Started leaving his backpack by the door without triple-checking it for missing folders. Trust, like healing, grows back in layers. As for me, I go to work. I cook dinner. I ask how his tests went. I sleep better. Not perfectly, but better. I stopped asking why she did it. Stopped wondering if it was something I missed or caused or invited. Because the truth is, some people carry ruin like perfume. Spray it on everything they touch and then cry when the scent turns sour. She wanted to break me quietly, laugh behind my back, and keep the story clean. Instead, the truth spoke. Through a hidden lens. Through a boy who saw more than he should have. Through silence that held power, not fear. So, if you're reading this because you feel something is off and you're not sure if it's you, listen closely. You're probably not crazy. And if your kid says something feels wrong, believe him. Even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts.